Good morning, everyone. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into Florida's Stand Your Ground case. Specifically, we're going to talk about the shooting that took place here in the past week or so in Marion County. The Marion County Sheriff's Office effectuated an arrest recently. This shooting scenario has brought a lot of outrage. A lot of race baiters are involved. And, a mother was unfortunately killed. So we're going to discuss this case overall. We're going to discuss some of the angles on Stand Your Ground, how the police responded. We'll take a look at the scene through Google Maps and get an overview of what happened. And we'll analyze not only the Stand Your Ground defense regarding the home protection, but we'll also break down what she's been charged with, what she's looking at in terms of prison sentence if she's found guilty. It's also interesting, I'd say, as I don't think she was a USCCA member, but if she was a USCCA member, would she be covered in this scenario, getting a private defense attorney? That's a big question. We know right now that she's represented by the public defender's office. I don't know if there's plans in place for her to get her own attorney, though. So let's dive into this. We're going to take a look at the arrest affidavit. We'll lay out the facts as they came known to us through the eyes of the detective. So I guess grab your coffee and let's get into it. As we're get started, if you would chime in on the comments and let me know you can hear me okay. Let me everything's going well, where you're coming from maybe. And I'm going to pull up this arrest report and share it with you guys. I've also down in the live stream or in the description to the live stream, I've included a link to all these documents. It's a Google Drive link, and you'll be able to look at it and see it on your own. Let me make that bigger. Okay, so we're looking at a redacted arrest report that we found on the Clerk of Court's website. And it looks as though this lady, Susan, she's been charged with manslaughter, as well as manslaughter, the killing of a human being other than murder or homicide with a firearm, as well as culpable negligence, exposure to harm, simple assault, a couple of counts of simple assault, and then simple battery. So let's take a look at this affidavit. Let's see what the detective had to say. He does a little summary here to start with, and we're going to start with his actual impact, or where he started with. Detective Smith was notified of the shooting investigation and responded to the incident location as the lead detective in the homicide. While en route to the defense location, I was contacted by the on-scene supervisor, Sergeant Boyles, by phone, who advised the information received from the scene that Lorenzik had an altercation with juveniles in front of her residence, during which time she was yelling at the juveniles and throwing items at them. The mother of the juveniles, which is the victim, then approached Lawrence. Let's just say Sharon. Is that her first name? I think is it Susan or Sharon? It is Susan. Yeah. So we're going to go with Susan on this instead of saying her last name over and over. I'm saying that wrong. Mother of juvenile's victim then approached Susan's residence and knocked on her door. The victim was then shot through the door by Susan. Upon my arrival, I made contact with a deputy on scene who advised that after arriving on scene and assisting in providing the aid to the victim, she spoke with blank, who told her that he was playing basketball in the street and his younger 10-year-old brother was playing in the field near Susan's residence. He advised that the juvenile told him he had an electronic tablet on the ground and that Susan picked it up. The juvenile told Susan to give the tablet back, but instead she approached him with an umbrella and started swinging it at him. Okay, let's take a look at the scene if we can. So give me a second. I got the address pulled up. I'm going to bring this up in Google Maps and I'll do a screen share. So copy, let's add a tab there. Okay, so we're in Florida. the area is kind of, all right. Am I sharing that screen? You guys seeing that? Yep, it looks like it. Okay, I'm not 100% sure. The address is all blocked out on this. Can I close this down? So the address is blocked out, so I don't know which one it is. But the detective later on, you'll hear, looks up at the property appraiser's website and looks up the owner. So I was able to look up the owner, and the owner of these two places is the same person. So what I'm thinking happened is the kids are playing potentially in this open field or this open field. So I'm not sure which one's the target house, but it really doesn't matter for the purposes of our conversation. Let's just assume it was this open field over here, and let's take a look at this place. Okay, so she's claiming stand your ground self-defense, remember. Florida has really strong stand your ground laws. Allegation is the kids are playing over here, or maybe playing basketball. Oh, there's a basketball court right there. So maybe that's the basketball hoop they were playing in. Here's the open field. And I think this is going to be her property right here. I'm not positive on that. So it's kind of hard to look in there to see what she has going on because it won't let us zoom in any further. So let's take a look at this from the other side at a different residence to get an idea of what her residence may look like. So here on the other side of the building, we kind of get a better view. And we have this enclosed porch area with it looks like a standard exterior door, inward opening with deadbolt and standard locking mechanism. And then to the left of the door, we have a sliding glass window. So maybe this is playing in because that basketball hoop was where? Where did that basketball hoop go? I thought we saw it. Is that it right there? Yeah, so there's the basketball hoop. So not sure exactly where she lives at, but we've got a kind of a framework for what this door looks like. Let's go back to the arrest report. Okay, so shortly after the victim approached Susan's front door and banged on the door, yelling for Susan to throw something at her if she wanted to throw something. Okay, so the mom approaches, she's pounding the door and hitting the door and being aggressive. According to information obtained by the deputy, the juvenile then recalled hearing a loud bang and observed the victim stumbling away from Susan's door saying, "Call 911." That advised the victim, "Call 911." So they made contact with another deputy. He asked if the defendant had a phone with when she was detained. The deputy stinger advised that he was unsure if she did. He then opened the rear passenger door of the patrol vehicle where Susan was seated, asked if she had a cell phone. She produced her Apple phone in her hand. Later on, I had reviewed the video from his patrol car. While she was in the back seat of the car, she had possession of the phone in her hand and was using it. The screen light activated. So she was using it in the back of her car. They think that's significant from an investigative standpoint. So is that? Yeah, I guess depending on what she's typing into the phone, that's the equivalent of a statement. I mean, unless she's requesting an attorney or sending an attorney, if she's sending a text to, "Oh my God, I just did something horrible," or something along those lines, that's not good for her. But we don't know what she accessed right now. They may find that out later on. So, okay, preliminary investigation of this guy, Cologne. After midnight on such and such date, I made contact with Cologne, who resides in the building adjacent to Susan. He advised that Susan's always yelling at the children who play in the area and calls false reports of them. This guy advised that Susan is known in the area to harass the children by video recording them with her phone as they play in the open field between the apartment buildings. Susan believes the area belongs to her. Mr. Cologne pointed to a sign in the grassy area between the two buildings near the fence location that reads "Private property, no trespassing." Okay, I don't know if I see that anywhere here. Let's take a look. Got a satellite dish. Nothing on that building. Nothing there. Is that something right there? No, doesn't look like it. AT&ADT. Okay. Well, it may be this building over here as well. Remember, I couldn't tell based upon the address being blocked out. I don't see any no trespassing signs here either. That no trespassing sign is going to be potentially significant, or could be potentially significant in a stand your ground claim for self-defense. Okay, let's keep reading though. Maybe switch over screens. There we go. All right, so this neighbor, I think based upon the reading of it, they're in the same room together, or the same quad structure together. And he advised he kept doing CPR. Okay, got it. Deputies made contact with multiple residents in the area. The fence acknowledged hearing what would have been a gunshot, but no one other than the victim, juvenile witnesses were identified as having observed the shooting. So our only actual witnesses to the shooting are the kids of the victim? Man, that is a horrible situation. Man, those kids, how horrible is that? So let's continue on here. Observed observation of the incident location. Okay, good. So I observed the exterior of the fence location, which is a multi-family quadplex apartment with 2 apartments on one side of the building and 2 on the opposite side. The entry points to the residence are partially enclosed with a wooden privacy fence with no mechanism for fully closing off the patio area leading to the front door. There's also a glass sliding door directly next to the front entry location. The fence building is labeled with the numerical blank, and the privacy fence outside the residence is labeled with apartment number 3. The victim was determined to live in the duplex directly across from Susan's residence. Okay, so I mean, all that looks like it's lining up, just like we talked about here. We have the fence partially closed off, as well as the signs, or as well as the doors here, just like I discussed. The reason why that's significant is the front yard area, or the front door, is kind of a common area that someone can go knock on. You know, the milk delivery man in historical time frames, the mail person may deliver. I mean, obviously in this scenario, we're seeing the mailboxes out here, but you know, the UPS guy, I mean, that's common knowledge that if you have a front door, that someone could approach that door. It's a lot different, you know, if somebody was like sneaking around in your backyard or was in the screened enclosed area of your house. And so the fact that there is no blockage on that gate is an area of exposure for her, the defendant here, where if she had that blocked off and the actual gate closed and it said no trespassing, we might be in a different scenario. So interesting take there. Let's go back. Where are we at? To the police report. So no mechanism to fully close it off the patio. Number 3. The area was secured by the responding deputies utilizing crime scene tape. I observed the glass door to have a handwritten note that read no trespassing. There was also a surveillance camera that appeared to be fixed in a glass sliding door facing outward onto the patio. I observed the front door of the fence location to have a single hole through the door slightly above the middle of the door. I observed 2 roller skates in the grassy field area in front of the fence location and another pair of roller skates further away from the residence. These roller skates are significant because earlier I mentioned, we kind of skimmed over it because it's not really critical, but it's the kids' roller skates were thrown at the kids by Susan. So that's what the mother of the juveniles was angry about, is that Susan had thrown some items at the kids and had swung an umbrella at them or something. It sounds like it was pretty petty because one of the kids got hit in the toe with the skate, and I don't think the umbrella ever hit anybody. So To what extent the kids are overreacting, I don't know. So we'll leave that alone, but that's kind of where we're sitting, and that's why the roller skates are critical to this. Roller skates were collected by Marion County Sheriff's Office, forensic evidence technicians, which were on scene, include the following people. A red t-shirt where it says, she slays, this means war, was required from the area where the victim was found on the ground. A red t-shirt with the word, she slays, this means war, was recovered from the area where the victim was found on the ground. That's interesting. So was that somebody else that came by and had that prepared? And she slays. That's crazy. Okay. By utilizing Marion County Sheriff's property appraiser, this is what I was talking about earlier. It was determined that the duplex or quadruplex apartment building, which Sharon resides, is owned by this guy. He rents the individual units out. The grassy area between the buildings and a separate quadplex is a common area used by the residents of the nearby apartments. So let's take a look at this. So this is an overhead view. Remember, this is the one where we haven't been focusing on. This is that front door we've kind of been looking at. So I don't know if this is apartment 3. Here's the basketball hoop right here. And it says that the victim lives right across the street. So that could be here, that could be here, that could be here, that could be here. And it could potentially be this building as well. So as the defendant's house. Any thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments. Yeah, it looks like using Google Maps, so the image could be years out of date. I get that. Actually, I think if we go to, isn't there a way to check on whether the image is accurate or when it was taken? I've definitely used this in, yeah, so this image right here is from 2019. And that is the most. So we got 2007 and then 2019. So yeah, so it's definitely several years old. So who knows when she moved into the place. So good point. All right, let's get back to this arrest affidavit. Deputy, was that, no, DCF, so Department of Children and Families. So DCF was involved, spoke with the juvenile who recalled the same events as previously reported to the deputy, and added that he saw Susan exit the residence when the shot was fired, and he did not see a firearm. Through consultation with DCF and the Child Protection Services Center, forensic interviews with the victim juveniles were scheduled for Monday. Interesting side bit there, just so you may or may not know. Whenever there's a juvenile involved in an investigation, and they're going to potentially be a witness in court, at least in Orange County where I'm here, and then it looks like in Marion County as well, they have a center called the Juvenile Protection Team, and it's like an all-in-one resource for children and juveniles who are either the victim of a crime, maybe like think sexual abuse, think child abuse, or maybe they witnessed a horrific crime, think, domestic violence with murder, or, in this situation, seeing their mother or their next door neighbor get shot. I'm not sure the exact relationship there. So this child protection team is an all-in-one resource where they have medical doctors, psychologists, juvenile psychologists, physical therapists, and all that different, all the different properly trained staff. And then that staff actually conducts the interviews with the juvenile, and the detective usually remains detached. Now, depending on the age of the circumstances and the circumstance of the event and the maturity of the child, that may have some fluctuation, but it's certainly designed with the idea to protect the children. And they'll do a lot of like coloring books type exercises and draw out information that way. Okay, so it looks like the deputy conducted an initial interview on scene, and they scheduled a second child forensic interview to be taking place a couple days later. So interview of the suspect. So Susan was transported by the deputy to the Marion County Sheriff's Office for questioning. Okay, so a lot of people talk about Miranda, and Miranda requires two separate things. It requires custody and it requires interrogation. So a traditional traffic stop, Miranda doesn't apply at all. In this scenario, though, she was taken into custody by the deputy and then transported over to another location. So we're probably talking here, Miranda is definitely applicable. This is not a voluntary interview. So I read her Miranda warnings. She acknowledged her understandings and agreed to speak with me about the homicide investigation. Why would you do that? You are facing the most dangerous position you've ever been exposed to potentially in your life with regards to your freedom. And you're agreeing to talk to someone who's trained to draw out information from you. And you're voluntarily, after he just told you that he's going to use all this against you, agreeing to talk to him. You know, how does that happen? And I would tell you that before you cast judgment on this lady, you better look in the mirror, because when you're placed under the situation of a police officer question you and you're in that frame of mind, you don't know how you're going to react. And so I would hope that you're doing some mental preparation as part of your training, that, you know, you envision yourself in handcuffs at the police department and, you know, them trying to pressure you into talking and what you would say. You should actually be visualizing that. So that way, when it happens, your brain's already been there. Your body can't go where your mind hasn't been. Visualization training is a huge aspect of that. All right, I'll get off it, my soapbox. So anyways, so she agrees to talk to him. And where are we sit here? So Susan advised that the neighbors were outside screaming and yelling. Kids were running around, and she stated she had a headache. She advised she went inside and laid down, and later got up and observed 3 boys outside. Susan advised she told the juveniles they were trespassing and needed to leave. I asked Susan to clarify where the juveniles were at the time she came outside. She indicated they were not on her patio, but on the grass of the yard separating 2 quadplex buildings. Susan advised the juveniles said they were going to tell their mom, and she stated, "Go tell your mom." Susan advised she had been having a problem with the same juveniles for approximately 2 years due to their lack of respect for her privacy and peace, or peace and privacy. Susan advised that the children of the victim, the mom, have told her in the past they would kill her. Okay, so she's interviewing with the detective. She's laying out her side of the story, and she's saying they trespass. It seemed like the deputy undercut that argument by saying, you know, it's in a common area. So we don't have solid defense there right now. And then she's trying to pull in this past threat of killing her. Susan advised that the children of blank, so the children have told her in the past they would kill her. Okay. I think these kids are 10. So, okay. I guess you take that for what it's worth. So Susan referenced an incident that happened in February 22 under case number such and such, in which the victim, so the lady who was shot, came to Susan's residence and confronted her about a verbal argument between Susan and the victim's children. The argument centered around Susan not liking the juveniles being around her apartment. According to the incident report that was prepared about the incident, so this is from years ago, another deputy responded out for this same type of argument. Susan alleged that she ripped a metal no trespassing sign out of the ground and threw it towards her. So Susan's alleging that the victim, I guess, was it the victim or the juveniles? It looks like the victim. Yanked this no trespassing sign out and throws it at her, striking her in the leg. The report indicated the victim stated she threw the sign down as she was leaving, but did not throw it towards Susan. No arrests were made. So the initial deputy going out there years ago is like, this is some BS. I mean, I'm not taking anybody to jail over this nonsense. You guys need to get things straightened out. Okay, so Susan advised that on the night of the shooting, after she told the juveniles to leave, they went home, and then all of a sudden, the mom came to her door and started banging at the door, yelling, "I'm going to effing kill you." Susan advised that the victim banged on the door so hard, everything started shaking, and she thought the door was going to come off. Okay, this is kind of significant here, because if this threat of aggravated assault is real right here, she's at the threshold of the door. And if she's gaining entry, I think we have a lot more protections according to Florida law. Why don't we take a look at that? So once again, if you look down below in the description, yeah, Marion County, Florida. Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate everybody hanging out. If you look down in the description, I think I put a link to this Google Drive folder if you want to pull these documents up on your own. Okay, so a person's in a dwelling. So this is the Florida Stand Your Ground statute regarding the castle doctrine. So let's take a look at this and determine whether she's good to go or not. So a person who is in a dwelling or residence in which the person has a right to be, has no duty, and has the right to stand his or her ground and use or threaten to use non-deadly force against another to the extent a reasonable person believes the conduct is necessary to defend himself or another against the imminent use or unlawful use of force. Okay, so a lot of reading here. I'm going to make it real simple. So that's the first one. You can use non-deadly force. You don't have to retreat. Or you can use deadly force if the person believes that the use or threatened use of force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm. Okay, so that's pretty standard. We kind of know that. Like, you can respond to non-deadly force with non-deadly force, and you can respond to deadly force with deadly force. That's no craziness there. So here's where it gets interesting. So that subsection 1 provides us that framework. But here it says, a person is presumed to have a reasonable fear of imminent peril or death or great bodily harm to himself or another when using or threatening to use defensive force intended to cause harm or death or great bodily harm to another if the person against whom defensive force was used was in the process of unlawfully and forcefully entering or had already unlawfully and forcibly entered the dwelling, residence, or occupied vehicle, or if that person had been removed, blah, blah, blah. So reading this law compared to her statement, I think whether she can effectuate an effective stand your ground defense really comes down to this subsection 2A. Does her story indicate that this person, the victim of the shooting, was in the process of unlawfully and forcefully entering? Were they in the process of unlawfully and forcefully entering? Oh man, did I lose that? Yeah, I lost the spot. That's a forensic interview. Man, I got to get back here. So here's the interview of her. So the victim came to her door and started banging on the door, yelling, "I'm going to effing kill you." Susan advised that the banging on the door was so hard, everything started shaking, and she thought the door was going to come off. She advised that she panicked and stated to herself, "Oh my God, she's going to kill me this time." At that point in time, Susan advised she fired one round from her handgun. She advised she stated she retrieved the firearm from the trash can in the bathroom where she normally stores the weapon. Interesting storage place there. I guess if you got a plan, you got a plan. Okay, so I guess, is that reasonable? There's a couple things to discuss there. So this lady, she defaults to grab a firearm? At one point, did she grab the gun? I guess the question I would have. And I don't know. I mean, I assume most people watching this are interested or carry a firearm or are interested in self-defense or just general protections. But how much time do you spend in de-escalation training? You know, when I'd imagine this lady doesn't have a whole lot of tactical experience. And so in her mind, grabbing that gun, has she ever gone through a scenario where she's put the gun away and then resorted to some type of hand-to-hand combat or resorted to some type of fight or hitting somebody with a baton or a stick? So really dangerous position here, especially for someone going through the stress of a high-risk incident or shooting. No doubt about it, she's scared. I believe wholeheartedly that the person inside Susan was scared inside the house. Somebody's banging on the door, bang, 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 bang. But once she picks up that gun, there's no going back, like for her, because she's never really trained to put the gun down. And I think back to my, SWAT days and military days, we would literally train, get the gun out of the holster and transition the firearm as soon as you break leather to get it orientated toward the target. And you're pulling out trigger squeeze as you approach. And so as your arms extend out, that round is going off as soon as the firearm comes up to the sight picture, to the eyes of your sight picture, your head stays on the level platform. So, I mean, I trained like that time and time and time and time and time and time again. I mean, that was based on military training. It wasn't until I got into law enforcement that we really focused, on de-escalation, where you draw your firearm out and do a building search. You'd come across a bad guy and challenge him and have to put your firearm away, and now you're going hands-on with the guy because he doesn't have a weapon. Well, if you're in a super highly stressed situation like she was at, and you have a tool in your hand that will eliminate that highly stressful situation, your brain is going to say, use the tool. So I am so sad to say, just poor, irresponsible gun ownership, irresponsible training, or I don't know, poor planning. I don't know. Anyways, so Susan advised that while beating on the door, the victim was yelling, "You don't talk to my sons, I'm going to effing kill you." Susan advised the victim briefly stopped banging on the door and started banging again. I asked Susan if the victim was trying to enter her residence, to which she responded, she was trying as hard as she could. So that sounds like an interesting statement, and the officer highlighted it there with that particular quote. I asked her if she meant she was trying the door handle, and Susan said she was just beating on the door. Susan advised she was yelled back through the door that the victim was trespassing. Susan advised that she did not look outside to see who was behind the door, but she knew the victim's voice because she recognized her voice. She stated that she never went back inside or back outside after confronting the juveniles, and she was locked the door when she went back inside. She was in the bathroom in the residence when the victim started banging on the door. She stated she fired the gun at the door from the kitchen area. Susan advised that Susan advised that 2 surveillance cameras were outside of her residence. One of the cameras is facing on the patio and is attached to the sliding glass door. The other camera is in the bedroom window facing the parking lot. So does that give us insight? She advised the cameras are functional. So maybe it is this one then, or this one. I guess maybe, I don't know. Anyways, doesn't matter. Victim was recognized. I asked about whether she picked up the juvenile's tablet. She denied it. She also stated that when she went outside, she threw a pair of roller skates in the yard and told the juvenile to go fetch them. Susan denied throwing the roller skates at anyone, saying she just threw them in the yard to the juveniles, leaving the items in her yard near her residence. I asked about whether she had any umbrellas. Susan advised she thought it was raining and she had an umbrella when she went outside, but didn't realize it was not. I asked Susan if she swung the umbrella at anyone, and she stated she did not swing it at anyone. She stayed inside the fenced area of her residence. I advised the deputy to receive information indicating she swung the umbrella at one of the juveniles. Susan advised that maybe she did step out of the fenced area and possibly swung the umbrella at the juveniles, but claimed it would not have hit him. Okay, so once again, she should not be talking to the police here because she's painting herself into a corner that she doesn't need to paint herself into. And I think that corner is this. So she said originally that she went outside because she thought it was going to be raining, or she took the umbrella outside because she thought it was going to be raining. She was going outside to look briefly. It's not like she was going to the store. I don't think you would grab an umbrella for that. So that doesn't seem to match. And then she denies that she ever swung the umbrella at anybody. And when confronted with the fact that other people said she did, she admits to it. This is like a criminal defense attorney's biggest nightmare of someone thinking they're doing a good thing by talking to the police, and it's just she's not doing herself any favor. You asked Susan about the statements made. The victim was beating on the door, advised other individuals who were interviewed, so they did not hear her make a statement about killing. Susan responded, "That's what I heard." Susan advised that she fired one round through the door because she panicked. She advised the firearm was a Remington 380, and she had stated she also owns a .22 Ruger, and the firearm might be in the trash can also. She advised she purchased the Remington 380 approximately 1 year ago. She had shot the gun at the range 4 or 5 times and used to be afraid of firearms. So that's probably the extent of her training, shooting a gun 4 or 5 times. Susan advised she had purchased the firearm for protection after the first after an altercation with the victim. I asked Susan what she was aiming at when she fired the gun, pulled the trigger. She advised she was fearful for her life and thinking, "Go away, get out of the situation, just go away already." Susan reiterated that her front door was locked when the victim was beating on it. She stated that she never intended to hit the victim when she fired the gun. She thought she hit really high when she shot. When asked if she was aiming at the door, Susan advised she just fired the gun because she felt like she was in mortal danger. Painting herself once again into a corner here, she now is stating that when she pulled the trigger, and she just wanted the situation to go away, and then indicates that she thought she aimed high. So it wasn't that she shot trying to end a threat. She thought she shot as a warning shot is kind of the implication here. So anyways, Susan stated she had surveillance cameras at cloud base. It could be accessed through her cell phone. She advised she would consent to allow the video footage. I don't know if I agree with that or not. They're going to get video footage anyway. Consent seems okay there. Susan declined to provide me with her passcode to access the phone, but after being read and signed consent to search the cell phone, she unlocked the phone herself and allowed me to get the videos using the Blink application. I did not observe any video recordings after approximately 8:40 p.m. on the night of the shooting. She advised she did not delete any of the recordings from the application. Susan advised that the door had been reinforced with an extra long deadbolt that was in a locked position at the time the victim was beating on the door. Made contact with the on-call state attorney's office, homicide unit, blah, blah, blah. Okay. We're already at 30 minutes. So I'm at 40 minutes now. I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to talk some more about some of the angles here. Maybe we'll hit this up on another live stream. I'll answer your questions as they come up. So what are they charging her with? They're charging her with manslaughter. Why is this not a murder charge? And I think if we look here to the murder statute, let's look at the manslaughter statute, actually. So the manslaughter statute says that, can I get a middle ground there? Nope. Manslaughter, the killing of a human being by the act of another without lawful jurisdiction and in cases in which such killings shall not be excusable homicide or murder. So the killing of a human being by the act of another without lawful jurisdiction, that's not murder or excusable homicide. That's manslaughter. So then I guess we got to look to the murder and the excusable homicide statute. So I've highlighted, it's a longer statute. I've highlighted the relevant portions here. And what we have is, I don't know why that's popping up on the side, but it is. So unlawful killing of a human being, this is murder, when perpetrated from a premeditated design to affect the death of the person killed or any human being. So if it's premeditated that you plan on killing somebody, that's murder. If you kill somebody and you were engaged in any of these offenses, trafficking, arson, sexual battery, robbery, burglary, any of these, then it's murder. Or if the death which resulted from the unlawful distribution by a person 18 years of age or older, the following substances. So if you're a drug dealer and you are providing someone with these drugs, then, and they die as a result of it, that's murder. In any of those cases, it is a capital felony, meaning punishable by the death penalty. So then we also have the unlawful killing of a human being when perpetrated by an act eminently dangerous to another, evincing a depraved mind regardless of human life, although without any premeditation designed to affect the death of a particular individual, is murder in the second degree and constitutes a felony in the first degree. Okay, so we have regular murder, premeditated, and then capital murder as a result of being involved in another felony, serious felony, or drug trade. And then this is second degree murder, which is the unlawful killing of a human by an act that's eminently dangerous and having a depraved mind. So I think what they're probably short of here is the depraved mind. They haven't been able to show that Susan has a depraved mind in order to get the life sentence of second degree murder. So if we look to excusable homicide, zoom in on this if I can, and it won't let me. So excusable homicide, homicide is excusable when committed by accident and misfortune in doing a lawful act by means with usual ordinary caution and without any unlawful intent, or by accident or misfortune in the heat of passion, upon any sudden sufficient provocation, upon sudden combat, and without any dangerous weapon being used, and not done in a cruel and unusual manner. So if you're stepping out to your car and somebody steps up, they try to rob you, you punch them in the nose, and you send their nose up to their brain, they fall down, hit their head, and they die, that would be probably excusable homicide. So it's not that, it's not murder, and the state can't establish the mindset necessary of a depraved mind with regard to human life. So then the default position becomes manslaughter. Killing of a human being done by an act, we just talked about this, so I won't read it again. So I guess I'm going to leave that there. There's so much more I wanted to go over. I wanted to go over more with standard ground. There was a delay in the police investigation, or a delay in the arrest. Why did the police do that? That was a big deal. All the race baiters got involved with this and then drew attention to it like the police were doing something wrong. The arrest was made and the police said they had to take stand your ground into consideration. That's a whole nother topic there. We'd like to break down into it. So let me know your thoughts, comments. I appreciate you joining me today. Have a good one. Hit it hard.